Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Rich Sports Talk. Thank you so much for joining us here today as we are going to mix it up a little bit. Now, you can always follow us on YouTube, but you can also check us out wherever podcasts are available. Spotify, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Spreaker, wherever you can check out a podcast is where you can find us. And again, guys, thank you again so much for joining us as always with all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets and this week, the New York Giants. So, full disclosure, we usually talk a lot about the New York Jets on this channel, but I thought it would be interesting because we need to look at the New York football scene here at the NFL trade deadline, which will take place tomorrow. Lots of rumors going around and what I think each team should do. And part of the reason I'm doing this is because I do think there's a little bit more to talk about with the Giants at their trade deadline, but we'll get to them in a second. And let's start with the big one, which is the New York Jets. The New York Jets at this trade deadline, to be honest with you, I don't want to see him do anything. I think that they've done more than enough. They've already traded for Davante Adams. They brought in Hassan Reddick through there, finally signing him. The only way if I'm the New York Jets, if I'm trading for anyone right now, is if I'm trading like a 6th or 7th round pick that is basically inconsequential for a team need. If they could get a starting safety right now, maybe, or the only other position I would think is a run-stopping defensive tackle. But the issue right now for the Jets is I just don't see any pieces really available right now. And as much as I want to see the Jets compete this year, I think they're in a spot too right now where you look at this team and they are what they are. They're a 3-6 football team. And I don't want to see them investing more resources in a team that we're really not sure about. I said this in the last episode. As much as the win last Thursday night was fantastic, I really want to see this team to really buy back in, be at a certain point. Like to me, for this team, even though they're the 10th seed right now, they need to be 5-6 going into the bye. They need to be 5-6 over the next 2 weeks, go with 2 wins, get to the bye at 5-6. Then I can look at it and say, okay, I can at least somewhat buy into this. I can kind of look into this. I can kind of buy into that. But in the meantime, I just can't really buy into this Jet team until they get there. My biggest fear is that this Jet team is going to spend more resources in order to try to make a run here. And look, I don't think it's wise. They've already invested a bunch of resources in this season. They've already made their big splash move with Davante Adams a couple weeks ago. To me, stand pat the deadline. I don't see a significant move that's going to help this team. I don't want to see them burn through more draft capital, especially because I think they're going to need it next year. Look, as much as I think we want this team to compete and go on the Cinderella run, I don't want to see them just giving up assets just to give up assets. If you were to tell me a week ago, the one piece I would have considered moving from the Jets was Mike Williams to try to regain some draft capital. But unfortunately, with the injury to Allen Lazard, him going to be on the IR for at least 4 weeks, you kind of feel like this team is not going to make a significant move right now. You really don't think they're going to make that significant of a move until basically that happens. As, of course, there's a car alarm going off in my neighborhood, so my apologies for that, but just double checking to make sure. Just want to make sure it's not mine. So I'm pretty sure it isn't, but, knowing my luck, who knows? So, but anyways, let's get back to it as we get a little bit of the distraction there. So really, I don't want to see the Jets making any moves. As much as I think Mike Williams is a good piece for the Jets to potentially move, unfortunately, it seems like Malachi Corley's in the doghouse for obvious reasons, even though I still think he needs to get his touches, and I still think he's a valuable player for this team. Like, I just look at this team, and I basically look at it and I go, okay, this team needs to continue to grow. This team needs to continue to develop. This team needs to continue to go out there and develop this team. I'm sorry, the car alarm's just distracted. Anyways, let me stay on point here. Mike Williams, a couple weeks ago, I was a good piece to try to move. But unfortunately, right now, I just don't see them moving him off with the Allen Lazard. If Lazard was healthy and Lazard could be the number 2, the number 3 on this team, I think that'd be another story. But it's clear after their big 2 of Davante and with Garrett Wilson, this team feels there's significant drop-off, so they want to keep as many bodies. And look, I don't know how much Williams would get in return. If a team gave you a crazy offer, like if some team offered you a 3rd or 4th round pick, I do think you'd have to consider it. But the other thing with the Jets, too, is who's really in charge for the GM right now? Who's really in charge for the general manager position? I don't really know. I don't really know. And unfortunately, it's one of those things too where at the time I just don't know what is going on with the Jets. But let's move into I think what's the more interesting, which is the New York Giants at the trade deadline. Giants now are 2-7. There is a lot going on, and I think the Giants are arguably the most intriguing team at this NFL trade deadline. I really think that they are the most intriguing team at this trade deadline right now because Jesus, this car alarm's just driving me nuts right now. So, just one of those things, just like you can. So, but, oh well. So, but anyways, so with the Giants at this trade deadline, I think that there is a lot that we can get out of this because the Giants are, I think, the most interesting team at this NFL trade deadline because I've always said on this channel, organizations can tell you one thing. They can tell the press everything. They can tell reporters everything. But I always say actions from an organization will always speak louder than words. And yes, I know that the Mara family gave this regime, this head coach, and this general manager a massive vote of confidence a week ago. They gave them a massive vote of confidence, basically saying that they are going to be here in 2025. But this trade deadline, I think, is going to be a very intriguing one. Because yes, are the Giants still technically in it at 2-7? Yeah, perhaps. But the smart thing for the New York Giants right now would be to be sellers at this trade deadline. They'd be smart to move off from Azeez Ojulari. They'd be smart to move off from guys like Darius Slayton, guys who are not in the long-term picture of this team and likely aren't going to be coming back after next year on contracts. So they need to get as much draft capital as possible because it's clear the Giants need a quarterback, and they're going to need ammo to try and go and get a quarterback in this draft. But I will look at this draft and at this trade deadline and see this really vote confidence. If this organization really has the vote of confidence in these two guys, I think you'll see them make a couple moves to try to get more draft capital for 2025. The biggest worry I have, though, and this is why I think votes of confidence in the NFL don't really mean much, is a lot can change. A lot can change in just a couple weeks. I mean, we've seen it for across town with the Jets, and I know Giant fans don't want to hear this. The national media doesn't like to point this out, but the Jets and the Giants are basically the last 10 years the same team. Teams that can't get it right with the quarterback position, teams that can't get around the offensive line, teams that burn through coaches in front offices and have impulsive owners. As much as I know Woody Johnson gets the label as an impulsive owner, he's also not the owner that's had a cycle of 2-year head coaches year after year after year. So here's the thing with this trade deadline. And I have to wonder what Mara's thinking right now, because this to me goes back to Hard Knocks, because the offseason Hard Knocks was very late. It was clear that Mara wanted to keep Saquon Barkley, especially if it was to the Eagles. And I will always look back at that as Joe Schoen so nonchalantly basically saying, don't worry about it. I know you don't want owners meddling with the team and you don't want owners to make a roster decision, but if it comes down to $1 million or $2 to make the owner happy, I would suggest trying to make the owner happy. Because look at this past weekend. This whole offseason, I think that Mara was basically given a bill of goods from this front office that basically, yes, we need a quarterback. We're going to find one in the draft. We're going to find a great kid. We're going to find someone to develop around. He'll sit behind Daniel Jones maybe for a year, but we're going to find a quarterback. We're going to build a great team. We don't need Saquon. And look, I agree that for the long term and the smart move wasn't to give Saquon a massive contract. I get that. And to be fair, I think they found some nice pieces with Singletary and the kids they've drafted. But you have to wonder, after giving that vote of confidence and you watch this past weekend, And the Giants ownership group is looking and seeing Saquon doing that reverse juke in Philadelphia and blowing up on social media, and the Eagles winning another game. And then you see Jaden Daniels, a guy who the Giants had brought into their building, a guy that they were really excited about bringing into their building, is the franchise quarterback, or what looks like a franchise quarterback for Washington. You're seeing Drake May, a guy that the Giants were linked to a lot, that they were considering trading up with the Patriots with, making an unbelievable play and keeping the Patriots in their game. You look across the league right now and you wonder what's going on. And also, to add insult to injury, you have Malik Neighbors sounding off after another Giants loss. And you have a lot of people saying, oh boy, is this another OBJ, incredibly talented receiver, but is he going to potentially be a head case? And I get the Giants last year, but you have to wonder if they're sitting there in the ownership booth going, we're going to give this regime that decided to double down on Daniel Jones, we're going to give them a chance to draft a quarterback in a quarterback class that, let's be honest, I don't think is that great. I think that there's a couple decent prospects, but the thing that the Giants are running into, and why, if you are going to give this team a vote of confidence in this owner and this staff, you need to allow them to get picks right now. Because here's the thing. If we were to just look at the draft today, just today, look at the top 10 teams. I think that outside of maybe, and again, for people who have asked me, I do a lot of draft content. I do a lot of draft content, and I will get more content out there, and also my early big boards and projections. I don't think this is a great quarterback class. I mean, Shedeur Sanders did declare today, but I think Cameron Ward's the best one in this class. And Shedeur Sanders, I think there's a lot of talent there, but there's also a massive amount of baggage with his father. But let's just play this game. Let's look at the top 10 the top 10 teams right now in the NFL draft. If the draft were today, and again, things are going to change, but these are the top 10 picks. Who needs a quarterback? You have New England and Jacksonville, who won't need a quarterback. But you got New Orleans, might be looking to get away from Carr, 2-7, lost 7 in a row. Carolina's sure going to be looking for a quarterback. Cleveland's going to be looking for a quarterback. Vegas is going to be looking for a quarterback. Heck, Vegas is trying to tank to get a quarterback, firing all their staff this week. The Giants, of course, Miami, Tennessee's going to probably be looking for a quarterback. And if the Jets are in the top 10 and they get to the right guy, I could see them being in a market for a quarterback. So just out of the 10 teams I just mentioned, just the 10 teams, 5 or 6 are definitely taking a quarterback, but there could be up to 7. And that doesn't include number 12 Indianapolis, who's already moving on from Anthony Richardson. So the thing with the Giants is I think you need to get as much draft capital, not only for this draft, but to also potentially trade for someone. The Giants' best route for a quarterback might not be the draft this year. I think that this is going to be a fascinating secondary market this year with young quarterbacks. And you also wonder, too, if that is going to be a new market now, because you look at guys that have gone to second and third teams, like a Baker Mayfield, a Sam Darnold, who are given a chance and given the chance to develop correctly. They've looked pretty good. And you wonder, could a team like the Giants maybe look at, let's say, Anthony Richardson for the Colts, who they've benched and maybe they're done with? You look at Bryce Young in Carolina, maybe they're going to be done with him. You look at guys like Justin Fields, like they're not great options, but maybe you feel that they have a higher ceiling or more potential than the guys in the upcoming draft. So if you are the Giants, you have to be incredibly aggressive if you are this regime that is looking to be still here. And I've heard the arguments, well, if they win in Germany this week, they have a couple of easy games coming up. Look, I just don't think the Giants are built for a run. I don't think their defense is that great. I don't think they have great weapons. And look, they are a 2-7 team for a reason. And if I am this Giant front office, I am looking to make moves right now. I am looking to recoup as much draft capital as I possibly can, because let's be frank, I think this is going to be, if there really is a vote of confidence, it's a very loose vote of confidence. I think it's basically, you better get the quarterback right, and you better get him in this draft or through free agency or something, because if it doesn't work next year, everyone's gone. And if that's the case, this team needs to load up on picks. And again, this is a ownership group that's now looking and seeing that Washington has their quarterback. They are seeing that the Eagles have their quarterback and the Giants' former star. And a part of it is you wonder, is there a bit of resentment for this team? Because let's be honest, this team moved to Tommy DeVito last year. Tommy DeVito won a couple games, but in the grand scheme of things, did Tommy DeVito beating Green Bay hurt this team from getting a top 3 quarterback? And now you look at this year's draft, I don't think it's a great quarterback class, but the other thing is the demand for quarterbacks. There are so many teams that are going to be looking for a quarterback. So you need to get as much draft capital as possible. And if I'm the Giants, I think it's going to be very telling. If they move Azeez Ojulari, like if I'm Joe Schoen, I am calling Detroit and I am not hanging up the phone. And I'm basically sweet talking Detroit saying, look, Detroit, you got to go for it this year. This is your Super Bowl window. You have the opportunity to have the Super Bowl go through Detroit. You are missing Aiden Hutchinson for this year. We can give you that great pass rusher to an already incredible defense. We will give you that if you can give us a good draft pick. And look, maybe they could get a second or third round pick out of it. Slade, I don't think will command as much on the open market, but there is a lot of good teams right now that could use Azeez Ojulari as a dynamic pass rusher, especially for a long postseason run. And really, I put Detroit on the top of the list. And if I'm the Lions, I would definitely consider it. But I think it will be very telling if this team doesn't make a move. I think that it is not a vote of confidence in this front office. Maybe they'll keep their jobs for the offseason. Maybe they'll get the chance to get the quarterback, but I wouldn't rule anything out. Because if they don't make a move here, you wonder, are they being told by ownership, you can't make a move because we don't trust you to make a move? Now, if they don't make a move, you know what is going to be said. They're going to come out either Tuesday night. They're going to come out Wednesday. They're going to say, no, we still think we have a chance to compete. We look at the schedule. We don't think we've lived up to our potential. We think we have a run in us. And look, that's all fine and dandy. But this is a situation where the Giants are playing with fire because let's be frank. If I'm the Giants, I'm not starting Daniel Jones another game. I'm not, because the risk is he gets hurt and then you're stuck in that contract. The Giants are not in a great cap situation as it is, but if they're locked into Daniel Jones next year, then they really are limited in their options of building a good football team because they are stuck with a horrendous quarterback contract. Now, on the bright side, it gives you a quarterback where you can sit and develop a rookie. But right now, if I'm the Giants, I'm playing either Drew Lock or I'm playing Tommy DeVito. And again, you might argue they might even give you a better chance to win the Daniel Jones. But the one thing I worry about with Daniel Jones is the way Daniel Jones wins and gives the Giants a chance is not with his arm, it's with his legs. And when you're talking about an injury-prone quarterback running around, trying to make plays, and he has a contract incentive that will kick in if he gets injured, I think the Giants are playing with fire. Because I could just see this now. Could you just see this scenario? Giants don't make any move at the trade deadline. They go to Germany, and maybe they win, but what if Daniel Jones gets hurt in Germany? Then all of a sudden you're like, they are stuck. The one thing the Giants have been the last couple of years, and I get it, I've been a Jet fan, I understand where the Jets have been too, the Giants feel stuck. And part of it is they invested all this money in Daniel Jones, and that has greatly impacted this franchise and what they've been able to do and not do. They were not able to bring back Saquon, large in part because of this Daniel Jones contract. They're not able to be as aggressive in free agency because they are overpaying for Daniel Jones. And look, in the NFL, you can overpay for a great quarterback, but the worst thing you can do is overpay for a mediocre or bad quarterback, and that is what the Giants did. And the Giants in this front office, you have to question the talent evaluation. Because for the Jets, you question the talent evaluation where, yes, the draft where they took Zach Wilson, you look at everyone else, it was a bad quarterback class after Trevor Lawrence. It was Trevor Lawrence and everyone else. And that's what I think this year's coming draft's going to be. Now, I don't think Ward is as good as Trevor Lawrence, but I think he's going to be the clear number one, and then it's everyone else. So I just want to get that out of the way. But I just look at it and go, you're looking and saying, do you really trust them to pick a quarterback because they picked the wrong one? It's kind of like with this Giant team. A part of it is, do you think they're looking at it and going, do we really trust this regime because they want to invest in Daniel Jones? Giants are in a tough place. They want a playoff game with Daniel Jones. But when you are running an organization, the National Football League, you are not doing it for what will make fans happy or what might be the popular move. You do it for the right move. And even after that season, I still think a lot of Giant fans and a lot of NFL people were looking around the league going, not sure about Daniel Jones. And they had the option. They had a couple of choices. They could have given him the franchise tag. And again, it would have limited what they could have done that season. It would have been a bigger price on the salary cap. But the one thing that the franchise tag would give them would be flexibility. And you wonder now what the world would look like if they had gone the other way, which was they gave Saquon the long-term contract and they gave Daniel Jones the one-year franchise tag. You give him the franchise tag, goes out there, gets hurt, boom, you have clarity. Okay, he's not the guy. We have to move on. And then after that season, all that money comes off the books and you're able to be flexible. But instead, they made a choice. They invested heavily in Daniel Jones. They franchise tagged their star player, which pissed him off, and I think created a rift between him and the organization. And this organization also last year had an opportunity. They had an opportunity to trade Saquon Barkley. They had an opportunity that you wonder will be a decision that comes back to haunt them. Because there are certain decisions that haunt franchises. The New York Jets deciding to draft Mekhi Becton over Tristan Wirfs has haunted this franchise for years, and how they've handled the offensive line. It's had a massive trickle-down effect. The Daniel Jones decision to make them that quarterback offer and tag Saquon had a ripple effect. And look, last year, I'm not saying you're getting a first-round pick for Saquon, but last year's trade deadline, where we forget, the Giants last year coming into the draft, before the Brian Burns trade, had a first-round pick in 2 seconds. If you had gotten an additional second for Saquon, would it have been out of the realm of possibility that, and also, again, they probably would have had a better draft pick without Saquon in the second half, but would it have made more of an effort where you need a quarterback, get as much ammo in a good quarterback class? Like, let's say even the Giants somehow are picking 6 again. I could see a scenario where all of a sudden then you have 3 second-round picks in last year's draft, a really deep draft. I think it'd be hard for the Patriots to turn down swapping ones, 3 seconds in next year's draft, and then a potential first the following year. Yes, it would have been a steep price, but you at least would have had the ammo to do it. And you would feel a lot differently if they had a different quarterback or a franchise quarterback right now. And the other thing I think the Giants regret too, and I wonder if there's a rift in that building, is not drafting a developmental guy. I saw on their board they had Joe Milton with a special marker, and I thought he was a guy they wanted to develop. Sit behind Daniel Jones for a year, and it would have been a lot different. Like, if, let's say, he's on this team right now, could there be a scenario where, okay, we're going to let him start the rest of the season? Maybe you have something in him. Maybe you have some talent. Maybe you have a guy that could potentially be the starting quarterback. And I know guys want to give Tommy DeVito a shot. I don't think Tommy DeVito is going to be a starter, but I think he could be a backup in this league. I think he could win a couple games. If you want to give him a shot, sure, give him an opportunity. But the story is over on Daniel Jones. It's done. And for this team, as much as I think this team wants to continue to try to go out there, it is incredibly frustrating. It is incredibly frustrating. RJF Media, I'm guessing you're talking. RJF Media, I don't know what team you're talking about right now, but look, here's my thoughts on Shedeur Sanders. I think Shedeur is an incredibly talented kid. I think he's got a tremendous amount of upside, and he might, of all the quarterbacks, have the highest ceiling. I think Cameron Ward's probably the safest pick in the entire draft. But with Shedeur, the thing I worry about with him, and again, I know he's had a great career at Colorado. I know he declared today 48 touchdowns to 9 picks. The one thing I really love about him is the completion percentage, completing nearly 71% of his passes. The thing I worry about with him is his dad, because I think he emulates a lot of his dad, which again isn't a horrible thing. But when you want a quarterback, you want a leader, you want someone that is completely dedicated to football, and that's what they're focused on. When Deion could be boastful, Deion could be the center of attention as a corner, because his job was very simple. It was, Deion, go cover their number one and go make plays on punt returns and then a couple plays as receiver. Okay. And he had the talent to back it up. You can have all the talent in the world to play quarterback in the NFL, but it takes a certain mindset. And I do think a lot of young quarterbacks, especially in New York and these big markets, get distracted by success. I mean, we've seen the guys with the personalities like a Zach Wilson absolutely crash and burn here. And really, the best ones are the guys that just keep their heads down and work. I think Daniel Jones has a great personality for New York. I just don't think he has the talent to be a franchise quarterback. Whereas Shedeur, I just worry. I don't think New York is going to be a great fit for them. But look, both of these teams have a lot of decisions at this trade deadline, and we will break down all the latest. Thank you again for joining us here tonight on Rich Sports Talk. Make sure to give us a like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our latest content. And you can also check us out wherever podcasts are streaming, SoundCloud, Spreaker, TuneIn. If there's a podcast available, you can check it out. Thank you so much for joining us here. We will see you next time.